Hey Paul, thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure.
For those that you don't know, we're World Smart Cities Forum, and today we're going to be just learning a bit more about Unifiid, a bit about the company, and just talking about smart cities in general and some of the different challenges there are, some of the issues there are, and seeing your opinions on it and how Unifiid can potentially help out.
Good.
So it would just be great to learn a little bit more about Unifiid, if you can summarize it in for 2 minutes.
Sure. So Unifiid sort of took on the property tech sector of smart cities, and we approached the entire needs that have to be met in a totally different way. So I guess, although everybody says there's an app for everything, the reality is trying in, for example, a building like this with 8,837 people, to get them all to download an app, have Bluetooth switched on, have data switched on, have their phones all switched on, even the security teams, the reception teams, is really not possible. So what we developed was a way of embedding our technology, long-range detection of our technology inside the actual access card that you have to get into the building. And then just deploying the minimum amount of hardware to enable us to detect people at the right points, to deliver actionable data. So it's not just delivering data for the sake of data. I mean, I think a lot of data companies seem to think that data isn't the more the better. Well, actually, really what our view is that the more actionable data, the better. And therefore, we don't look at following everybody like a blue dot around an entire building all the time, because that data really, what can you do about it? I mean, it's not much. So what we decided to do is really just put in the data that we need to capture to make the right decisions for security, for safety, for personalization, for interactions with staff, and to also look at actually what's happening in that building and how can you lower the air conditioning, the lighting costs, and really make them much more sustainable buildings.
That's awesome. So the way you operate then, I presume there's no battery and stuff within the car.
Correct,
so it can literally last.
Passive.
So that's absolutely amazing. And is there a range for how, like, what the size of the building could be and for it to operate? Or
no, I mean, literally we don't have any issues on the size of the building. The only, where we are as a company, we spend a lot of time at a lot of universities. We have multiple projects going on how we develop these particular antennas and materials we're using in antennas and how we capture energy from the radio waves. So we're doing a lot of really very finite work inside the actual plastic card itself. And that enables us to have the longest read rate in the world right now. So we have anything up to 15 to maybe 18 meters range on a card.
Okay, that's amazing. And so do you think that type of technology can be adapted into a city? For like maybe ID cards, for example?
It can be. Now, not in all countries. I think, with the way maybe the West in particular, US and Europe, have much higher levels of data privacy, and they want that to happen. But I do think a lot of countries are working with it. I don't want to mention any right now, but some of the really major growing countries, they see this as a way of really having the data they need to have lower security costs in terms of policing, etc. And in one particular country where they have a huge number of tourists, it's looking at what these tourists are actually doing, where they spend their time, what are they doing, and delivering a much safer city, but also a way of capturing that data to market back to those people better.
Okay, interesting. And I'm sure you've heard the term smart cities for quite, like, it's just a buzzword going around. I just wanted to hear your opinion on what do you think is a smart city? Because a lot of people are always having this debate that they have their own opinion, and obviously we have our own opinion, but we want it to be more people-focused and people-centric. So in terms of your definition, Unifiid's definition, what is smart cities?
So to me, it's, no one company is going to come along and own smart cities. Yeah. It's each one of us who have a particular technology, honing that technology down to the nth degree, making sure our technology is absolutely core to what we're actually delivering, and getting everybody connected up together. I mean, it's all about connectivity rather than smart city, and really looking at how the city's working, being able to use your predictive analysis, be able to look at how buildings start emptying at a certain key times, what's the impact on the transportation system, how do you run your traffic lights, how do you run your security, all of these areas together have to come in one and just be far more efficient. And it's really about everybody who's getting involved in smart cities realizing that you have to work as a team here. This is all about integration all the way and being the best you can.
And I think that's, you brought up a really, really good point. I think if the whole purpose of a smart city is opening up the doors to collaboration. Because the more we collaborate together, the more we're sharing information, helping each other out. Essentially, we're going back a little bit where we're helping and rejoining our communities. So we're turning, like before you had like local areas and we had like a community and it was very people-centric. And we're kind of opening those doors up again, but instead of just small communities now, we're creating sister cities and networking, and it's just absolutely amazing.
I think all these cities have to work together. They have to go and see what technology works, what actually just doesn't hang together correctly, and go from there.
That's perfect. And I think another big thing is that a lot of people don't realize that many cities have like there's different cultures involved, and there's a lot of different traditions involved, and you don't necessarily have to lose that, because there are certain overlaps in different countries. And I think the best way, that we've looked at and we're looking at is how can there's certain cities that can maybe work well, and there's synergies there, and so it's finding the best practices within those different cities and seeing, okay, if this works here and here, why don't we bring it over to this city and we can then solve that particular issue. And just working with a lot of your international clients, have you come across those cases where you've seen a solution in one city and you think, oh, this can easily be applied here because they're facing the same problems?
I agree. For example, we're working on a project in Saudi now, which is push our technology really to the next limit and the next phase. And that is really it's incredible what they're doing, absolutely mind-blowing. And where the vision is way beyond where we are. And it's the same way I spent a lot of time in China, as you know. China doesn't have some of the preconceptions that we have. And I think if you look at even the Met Police now taking in face recognition into London, they're being very, very clear that only those who are persons of interest will be captured. Everything else will be gone. And I think, but still we get a lot of issues around data and what should be shared. My view is how many people have to die in buildings, how many people have to be murdered before you think actually it's important for the police or the fire service to have this data. And I do think we get in the West maybe a little over concerned about the data, and I do question what is the impact on, I used to work in loyalty data solutions, for example. A lot of people, I don't want anybody knowing what I buy. Well, really, who really cares about what you buy, what sort of meat and what sort of beans and what sort of potatoes you buy? Really it makes a difference. What it makes a difference to supermarket is they can become much more efficient and work at their product ranges and work at how they work. It's the same way in smart cities. It's all about how are people moving through a city, what are they doing in that city, and how can we make it more seamless? How can we so smart cities is all about not impacting the person to do anything, but delivering seamlessly exactly what should happen so it all just works together.
That sounds like the perfect definition and kind of how we're making people's lives better. But I think you've brought up a really key point multiple times, and that's the way data is used. And that goes back to your first point of how data is collected.
Yes.
And I think a lot of time, big data has been obviously a big buzzword going around. And I think people don't understand how difficult it is to process and break down all the data that there is, because they're taking and learning everything to actually really understand and analyze exactly what actually is relevant and for who. That's the biggest challenge in big data. And I think if we do just streamline that whole process and be like, what data really matters, and only record that information, then you are streamlining the process from the get-go. So any type of execution that you do is going to be a lot more efficient.
I agree. And what we do in smart cities and smart buildings is we don't even need to know who that person is. We just need to know what the occupancy level is. Not the names, not the age. We don't need any of that. Now, the only exception to that is in the evacuations of high-rise buildings, which are becoming actually one of the biggest issues I can see. We're not getting better at this, we're actually getting worse. There's buildings in London going up now with 13,000 people and 2 stairways. And you just think, well, when are we going to learn the lessons that, there's no professor of mathematics I can find that can tell me how you evacuate a building like that in an efficient way.
Without a panic.
Without panic and without coming up with theoretical ways. Theoretical ways are fine. I'm sure we can put a man in the sun if he came with enough theoretical ways of doing that, but you're just not going to. It's not going to happen. And I think a lot of what we're trying to get through in our company is that only in the exceptions do we need to say that is that person. So you breach a security protocol, you have a fire in a high-rise building. At that point, then we need to know who are the disabled people and where are they in the building? Where are the firefighters when they're in the building? So your command center can know what is happening, how the building's evacuating, and as the AI keeps growing, we can predict exactly what should be happening based on all these variables.
That's super interesting. And just to coming to that point, I'd be really interested to know what are the next steps for Unifiid. Where are you thinking of going? Where is technology taking you? And what some of the issues or challenges that you've come across, how are you now looking to solve those?
Sure. So last year we opened up in 5 countries, in China, Saudi Arabia, South Korea, Vietnam and Spain. Of course we got the UK already. And we'll probably do as many again this year. So I'm off to India next week on a Smart Cities trade mission with the government, and that's really to open that market up as well. So we don't have any global barriers. I mean, I guess as I said at the very, very start, it's all about specialising and being the best in class of what you do. And that's what we've done. We sort of went against the market when the market said it's all about apps. We took a bet that actually we think it might go another way. And we're right on that. And where I see things going globally, I believe we have a product which really, any smart city that has, in particular high-rise buildings, we can nail what happens.
Perfect. And just last couple of points now, and that's, if there was a local government, I mean, are you working directly with local governments, or are you working with the overall main government? How are you going and approaching? Because if you are working with local governments, what's your main advice of how you can actually help those cities?
So actually it's completely mixed per country. So in the UK here, Spain and South Korea, we're working really directly with building owners.
Perfect,
in Saudi, we're dealing with sort of top level of government. In China, we're dealing with the district governments. And they're the ones who actually make the decisions. So, you know, I've spent a lot of time in China, and we don't really need to be up at the highest level. What we need to do is work with the district governments who will implement this. And as those ROI models come back and we see the impact we can have on sustainability, on staff levels, etc., of a building, then that can be taken across all of the major cities in China where we have links anyway.
That's perfect. And so the main benefits that you're essentially bringing is you're creating a more sustainable way to actually monitor everyone within
how
the building.
How a building's working, what's happening,
so
and how we can make it
more
efficient.
Exactly. And then with that data, they can actually then reprocess it efficiently and actually come up with actual real tangible solutions from it.
Yeah, I mean, an example is this building here. So this building is lit up all night long because there's usually about 1, maybe 2 cleaners per floor. So they're all night long. What I'm trying to say is, well, if we know this floor is empty by 9 o'clock, the floor goes empty by 10 o'clock, send in 10 cleaners for half an hour and turn the lights off. I mean, it's not, I'm not going to win a Nobel Peace Prize for that one, but it's logic. But what we're doing, we're showing what's happening on each floor and saying, actually, you can restructure how you clean this building. And you can take who has walked on, and do you need to have all the lights on, or if it is a security guard doing a round at night, just put on the minimum, and when he's taking the next floor, turn these lights off. And it will make hundreds and hundreds of floors of lights left on every night in cities. Well, if we can cut that by 80%, that's a
huge amount. I mean, it ties into like waste management, it ties into help with sustainability and the environment. I mean, there's a lot of sustainable development goals that you're also fulfilling, but it's that compound effect. Like the more people that onboard this, the better it is. The better it will be for the whole city.
Exactly.
And then the cities can also achieve their goals, and it'll help the country overall too.
Yeah, and I think one of our big advantages is that we're not drawing any power out of how we're detecting each individual. It's all completely passive, and I think that's another benefit above the fact that we've seen what actually happens in apps, and no building in the world has managed to implement a system where every employee, every visitor, every member of staff, from cleaners to receptionists to security, have a phone on with an app running, with all that stuff happening. I mean, the big issue with mobile phones is the battery technology didn't keep up with us. So therefore we sit there watching what's running on our phone and actually having to turn off some of those background solutions.
And that's become a nightmare.
Well, it's great for me because it just means my system works and others don't.
Others don't, no, 100%. But no, I think that's unfortunately all the time we have. But thank you so much, Paul. It's been an absolute pleasure learning more about your company and seeing how you can work with smart cities.